QuickBooks Pro Plus Desktop 2022, Company Preferences, Search, Send Forms, Service Connection, Spelling, Tax, 1099, and Time and Expenses. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Plus Desktop 2022. If you have access to OneNote, would like to follow along, icon, left-hand side, topic introductions, 6220, company preferences, search, send forms, service connection, spelling, tax, 1099, and time and expenses. Also, take a look at the immersive reader tool, topic introductions, also in the text area. Same name, same number, but with transcripts that can be translated into multiple languages, either listened to or read in them. Same name and number as presentations as well. Topic introductions designed to give an introduction to the topic, provide screenshots, links when applicable, accounting background to complement the presentations. These can also be used to follow along with the presentations if you don't have access to the software at that time. Closing the icon on the left-hand side, we have the Edit drop-down. We're going down to the Preferences once again. This time we're down in the Search area. We're not changing any of the defaults within the Search area. These are the default settings there in the My Preferences tab up top. Then we're in the Search area. We're in the Company Preferences, once again keeping the default settings on. QuickBooks Desktop updates search information frequently, so changes to this company file can appear in search results. Select how often to update search information. Search box preferences, update automatically, that's the default. Update every 60 minutes recommended, that's the recommendation, the default. And then you have the update now option. This could be useful if you need to update immediately going into the search area down below or in the preferences. Then we're moving to the send forms. We're in the My Preferences. No changes to the default setting here. The checkmark for auto check the email letter checkbox if customer's preferred delivery method is email, meaning oftentimes you're going to be emailing the information and the forms these days, so it's going to be checked off by default. In that case, if that's not the way you're typically going to be sending things out, then you can uncheck that item. Use plain text form for email invoices, unchecked by default. Send emails using the webmail, Outlook, or QuickBooks emails. So these are ways that you could set up your email to go through basically QuickBooks to kind of integrate them. If you have webmail like Gmail, for example, you can go up top. Outlook then can be used here as well, Microsoft Outlook, and so on. In QuickBooks email, you could take a look or get into those preferences as well if you so choose. Send connection, we're in the My Preferences. These are the default settings. Give me the option of saving a file whenever I download Web Connect data. If QuickBooks is run by my browser, don't close it after Web Connect is done. Those are the default settings. We're keeping those. Company preferences. How do you want to handle your connection to QuickBooks services? The following settings apply to all QuickBooks services except payroll and bank feeds. Automatically connect without asking for the password. That is the default. Allow background download of service messages as opposed to the unchecked item. Always ask for password before reconnecting. Then we're going to be down here in the spelling. So these where you could set your spell check kind of preferences. We have the checks. These are the defaults. Always checking spelling before printing, saving, and sending support forms, which is good because it will then check the spelling as you're sending out the forms, possibly going to external users. However, it can be problematic as well because things that can cause the spell check are often abbreviations or all capital kind of letters that are going to be representing something or names. These are things that are going to slow the process down, but there are also things to which you can basically add to these items that will count as words, so they won't slow you down in the future. Once you get used to them in the system, you can move forward with them. Default settings here, ignore words, internet addresses. So if you check this off, it won't be picking up the internet addresses. Numbers, so it'll ignore those. That's on by default. Capitalized first letters. So if it's got a first capital letter, then it's going to assume it's a name possibly and not give a spell check on it. All uppercase letters, those could possibly be abbreviations for something, so therefore you might check that one off and then it won't be picking those up in the spell check. Mixed case, such as QuickBooks, where you have, again, another letter in the middle, which could indicate something funny going on there, which means you might not want the spell check. But even if you have the spell check on for those types of items, you can add those items as you're working with them so they won't bother you every time you send out another form. Going down to the 1099 information, we're in the company preferences. Do you file forms 1099? I believe it's on by default. and this will allow you the options to help you to track the 1099 information. They've got some information here to basically help you to do this as well. To track the 1099s, remember 1099s are going to be items that the tax law might require you to send to people that you are paying, usually contractors that are not businesses. And to track them, then you're going to have to track them specially to know who you're going to be paying. You can list them or tick them off as vendors who are going to be people that you're going to have to look out for to see whether or not you need to send them a 1099. And if you check them off, then you can generate reports and possibly even generate the 1099s through the QuickBooks system. And you also have some more options up top in terms of how you're going to set up the 1099s. What types of 1099s are you sending out to these individuals? If we go into the vendor item here, then in the settings, this is if we're setting up another vendor, someone that we are paying. In the tax settings, we got the vendor tax ID, which would be the EIN number, and then checking off that they're eligible for the 1099, the EIN, or possibly their social security if they don't have the EIN, would be necessary to identify them and report the 1099s as required to the IRS if necessary. The tax and expenses tab here, company preferences, I believe these are the defaults. Do you track time? I'm going to keep it on by the default. We'll use this a little bit, but we won't go into it in a lot of detail. It'll have a job cost type of system. If you're using this time tracking, oftentimes possibly in something like a law firm or a CPA firm or something like that. First day of the week, and on a Monday, that's going to be the default. Mark all time entries as billable, meaning when you enter the time, it's going to mark it as billable when you assign it basically to a customer so that you can then pull it into an invoice. We will see that in our practice problems. Invoice options, track reimbursed expenses as income, mark all expenses as billable, and default markup percentage 0% default markup account. And we're going to keep the default settings. So if you wanted to mark up the expenses, meaning you pay for something with a bill and then you're going to add that to the invoice and you wanted to then mark them up, you have the option to do that here and then assign the markup to an account if you so choose. This is the timesheet. So if we go back up to the home tab way up here, we're looking at the enter time here. So you can use this enter time to track the time, enter data into the timesheet for your clients, for your employees, and then you might charge the employees. For example, partnerships often do this for a law firm, bookkeeping firm, CPA firm, and then have a service item that will be assigned that you're later going to add to an invoice, and then track the time and have a billable rate for the service items that are set up. And then when you create the invoice, you'll have a pop-up when you select the client that you assigned the time to here. If it was a service item set to a customer or job, that will pop up when you pull up that customer or job, asking you whether or not you want to apply the time out so that you can bill it out in that way.